أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم برضوان إلى يوم الدين. So today we begin with Juz 8, and so we'll have a portion of Surah Al-An'am, and then we will touch upon a little bit on Surah Al-A'raf, and then rest of the Surah Al-A'raf I will pick up inshallah tomorrow. So as we open the Quran on Juz 8, the very first verse that we find is وَلَوْ أَنَّنَا نَزَّلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ وَكَلَّمَهُمُ الْمَوْتَى وَحَشَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ قُبُلًا مَا كَانُوا لِيُؤْمِنُوا إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَجْهَلُونَ. Even if we had sent down to them angels, and even if the dead had spoken to them, and even if we had assembled them before them and all the things face to face, they would still not believe unless it be Allah's will that they believe. Most of them behave in utter ignorance. So what we need to recognize is that the primary question that Quran deals with, and the whole book of the Quran and every single verse that it contains, deals with answering this one simple question. And that question is about God, who He is, about human beings, who they are, and about their relationship with Allah. And so this is what everything that the Quran contains surrounds around it. But it tries to instill whatever Quran wants us to believe, wants us to have faith in, wants us to live our life by, in the principles. It tries to draw us upon them through our faculties that Allah has given to all human beings. Our emotions, our intellect, our senses, and our senses through which we gather information and process information and analyze it and try to come to some conclusions regarding what we are seeing, what we are hearing, what we are looking, what we are feeling. And so in all those cases, those are the faculties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with. And created us with those faculties in the most beneficial manner that enables us to live our life, that enables us to see where we are going, that enables us to think what we are doing. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down His revelation about certain realities, the knowledge of which we cannot gain through a direct analysis, through a direct experience, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about a world beyond this world, and about things that are beyond human, physical human senses. And so in that case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have provided us with some means to be able to see that world, some means to be able to recognize that world, some means to be able to come to answer this question without any doubt, with a certain proof. A proof like the sun rises every morning and no one can deny that it is the sun, and the light that he is seeing is coming from the sun. It would not have been difficult for Allah to place before us that kind of proof before us. But He chose not to do so. And he chose not to do so because he describes and explains why. I mean, he answers this question in the Quran why he doesn't do that. Because he says he created human beings as a special kind of creation. A special kind of creation to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a responsibility that they must come to recognize these truths based on the metaphysical nature of the creation in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, and then recognizing those qualities in that. So it squarely places the responsibility on man to recognize and not to be forced and compelled into it. Even at the frustration of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran itself narrates his own inner condition, when it says لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ, are you going to destroy yourself? Are you going to kill yourself? Are you going to just dissolve yourself in worrying why these people are not believing? And so in that sense, the responsibility and duty is on human beings to recognize that truth. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that even though he is capable of a process in which everything can become clear like that of the sun, but he doesn't want to do that, because that's where he tests us. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ. He wants to test who voluntarily comes to believe in it based on the science that he provides, not based on a direct knowledge of it. He has placed signs for us, around us, signs that are compelling signs that should lead us to Allah. Not only signs that he has placed around us and the world in which he has created us, but our whole nature. The nature of our creation, the nature of our beings, the nature of the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us and shaped us and molded us, all of that should be something that should lead us to recognizing that truth. But he is not going to give us an absolute system, a proof, then that there remains absolutely no choice. But because the most fundamental, essential distinction that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places before man is that he has this choice, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be able to use that choice. If you cut any mammal, any animal, monkeys, cows, goats, chicken, whatever, you will find that there is so much similar between us. There is a brain, there is a blood circulation system, there is a heart, there are limbs and externalities that we find, that we use to do work and to move in the world and all of that. There is absolutely such a great level of similarity that people are deceived by it, into the level that they start to believe that our creation and that creation, there must be some connection of the kind where we are just a form that is little more advanced than that form. But biological advancement is not there. I mean, biological advancement doesn't exist in terms of the complexity of the creation. Where it exists is in our thinking, in our thought, in our intellectual capacity, which is not something that you can define physically. Or you can construct something physically and then instill that spiritual aspect of it into it. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in this way so that he has given us that choice. And he has given us that choice to be able to test us, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, so he can test who among you is good in his conduct. And so I think this is the most fundamental question that Quran deals with it repeatedly, deals with it in so many different ways. And this is also the most fundamental question, I think, that man usually misunderstands and doesn't fully come to recognize this reality about his own creation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us for a test. And so if he has created us for a test, then he cannot provide to us miracles through which he can enable us to believe in something. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is very clearly saying, وَلَوْ أَنَّنَا نَزَّلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ وَكَلَّمَهُمُ الْمَوْتَى وَحَشَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ قُبُلًا مَا كَانُوا لِيُؤْمِنُوا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَجْهَلُونَ. So there is not going to be any miracles there, and each one of us has to come to believe in it based on the faculties that Allah has given us, and using those faculties to determine the truth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantees for us that if you honestly use your faculties to determine the truth, then you will be guided to it. And so that is a guarantee that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he hasn't left us helpless, and he hasn't created a kind of puzzle for us where we have to solve this puzzle, which is difficult. What he does say is that instead of a direct knowledge, you get to it through the indirect means, and to use those indirect means, Allah has given us all the help that we need in terms of providing us with all the faculties and senses and power of thinking that we can use to get to that. So the next verse I want to move is little later in the Surah Al-An'am, which is the verse number 137. Verse number 137 says, وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ مِمَّا ذَرَأَ مِنَ الْحَرْثِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ نَصِيبًا فَقَالُوا هَذَا لِلَّهِ بِزَعْمِهِمْ وَهَذَا لِشُرَكَائِنَا. For in the interest of time, I'm not going to recite the whole verse, but this is verse number 137 in Surah Al-An'am, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about people that they assign to Allah a portion out of the produce and cattle that He has created, saying out of their fancy, this is for Allah, so they deem, and this is for the associates whom we have contrived. Then the portion assigned to the beings whom they have set up as associates does not reach Allah, but the portion assigned to Allah reaches the beings that they set up as associates of Allah. Indeed, evil is what they are doing. When we recite Quran, sometimes we come up with verses like these, and this verses is specifically speaking to idol worshippers. It's specifically speaking to idol worshippers and making sacrifices before the idols and taking sacrifices to the idols and devoting it to them, placing it before them. They used to do food and all kinds of things that they will bring to the idols so that idols may be pleased with them. And so, in our concept, especially in the modern world, in a rational world, we don't see that kind of behavior prevalent around us. That kind of behavior still exists in some parts of the world, but it's not something that is common, that the human intellect accepts to it. So what we need to understand is that Quran, which is revealed for all times to come, and it is an eternal hidayah. And if in an eternal hidayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved some ayah for us, some concept for us, then its value must be eternal. It cannot be historical. It cannot be that you recite this verse and your mind goes back to the time when the Quran was being revealed, and you imagine, and your imagination picks up the picture of those idol worshippers and what they used to do, and then you disconnect from it in the current context that it does. It's a historical reality that Quran is describing, and that it doesn't have a binding or a bearing on our current situation and circumstances. That will be a wrong thinking, because Quran is not a historical document. It's a book of hidayah and guidance. It's a book of hidayah and guidance that is eternal, that is for all times to come. So whenever we come upon verses like these, that on the surface appears to be talking about a historical reality, we must be able to translate these verses into our modern context, into our current context. We must understand what is the relevance of this world for us. Uh, and so, what they used to do is they used to make those sacrifices, and then they used to divide them up, thinking that this portion belongs to us, and this portion belongs to Allah. And so they would divide up whatever offerings they had in life between the associates that they associated with Allah, and between Allah. So the primary, most fundamental lesson that we need to get from this is that we cannot divide our lives. We cannot divide our lives between secular and religious, between this is for Allah and this is for me and this is for the society. That kind of division is not something that is in the original, in the context in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about His hidayah and everything. It is binding on every aspect of our life. It binds us the way we sleep, the way we wake up, the way we wash our bodies, the way we earn our livings, the way we conduct our affairs in the world. All of that is something that is linked with the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we cannot divide our lives up. And so a modern contextual translation of that would be that we need to understand that we cannot do that. Or if, suppose a businessman earns a lot of income, and he takes portion of it and gives to masjid and good causes, and makes a name for himself in that. The other portion he spends on other things, maybe things that are not liked by Allah, maybe doing kinds of businesses that are not good, not permitted, selling alcohol or gambling or so many things like that through which we earn our living, or milder forms of it. And then we think that as long as we have given some to masjid, some to good causes, we are free to do with the rest of the money the way we wish and the way we desire. So that cannot be an Islamic thinking. I mean, the whole of your income, the whole of your earning that you earn must be in conformation and with the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, with the teachings that He has given us. So all of it must be under the same rule, same principle. And Quran makes it easy for us, and it says that if you do things avoiding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited, the act of avoiding what He has prohibited, it by itself makes it as if you are spending it in a good cause. Even if you are running a business, some kind of it, but you try to avoid running that business, indulging in things that are prohibited, or making the kind of transactions that are prohibited, then that business itself becomes an ibadah, something that you're doing for the sake of Allah, and you are going to be rewarded for it, for doing so. And so in that sense, that is for Allah, and what you give to masjid is for Allah, and what you give to the good cause is for Allah. Everything is for Allah. There is no division. There is no such thing that you want to reserve a portion of your income for charity, and you say, I'm going to give this portion to the charity, and this is how I'm going to purify my income and make my income correct, right, and permissible for myself. No, all of it must be spent for Allah. All of it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is the portion you spent on masjid, this is the portion you spent on jihad, this is the portion you spent for the betterment of the society, this is the portion you spent to earn a livelihood and living for yourself, which itself is you are responsible to do for the sake of Allah, not for worldly needs. So this division of the world into secular and religious, and division of your possessions and your wealth and your belongings into this is for charity and this is for Allah and this is for me and this is for my family. That kind of thinking is not the correct thinking based on the Quran. And so when you recite verses like this, وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ مِمَّا زَرَعَ مِنَ الْحَرْثِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ نَصِيبًا فَقَالُوا هَذَا لِلَّهِ بِزَعْمِهِمْ وَهَذَا لِشُرَكَائِنَا, that this belongs to us, this belongs to Allah, and belongs to us, and this belongs to the associates. You cannot divide up your life in that manner. The both secular and religious is not the two separate concepts, but one and the same concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to. The next verse I want to move to is verse number 148, which again emphasizes what I dealt with in the first verse that I picked up today, which is سَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا أَشْرَكْنَا وَلَا آبَاؤُنَا وَلَا حَرَّمْنَا مِنْ شَيْءٍ. That those who associate others with Allah in His divinity will now surely say, had Allah willed, neither we nor our forefathers would have associated others with Allah in His divinity, nor would we have declared anything as forbidden. So in that sense, people think that if Allah had guided us, I would be guided, but I am the way I am. So when you come to recognize the powers of Allah and His power over you, then people get into this illusion that if He had so desired, I would have not done something wrong, and I would be righteous if He had so desired. But it's not in His desire that He will make us righteous. That is again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns against it. That is not the kind of thinking that is permitted for you, because Allah, as I mentioned in the beginning of today, that Allah, this life is a test of choice, and Allah doesn't want to compel us to something. That we must come and recognize that choice through our own voluntary means. The next verse that I wanted to pick up is قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. These are the verses 162 to 163 of Surah Al-An'am. And so following the previous verse that I just mentioned about not dividing your life into compartments and not compartmentalizing your life, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again re-emphasizes it through a statement through the tongue of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which says, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, surely my prayers, all my acts of worship, and my living and my dying are all for Allah alone, and who is the Lord of the universe. And He is the one who has commanded me to submit, and I am the first of those who submit to Allah. So here is very clearly defines that there is no division in life. First of all, salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati. It encompasses the whole life. That when you are standing before Allah in a masjid, salati wa nusuki, and the sacrifice you make for the sake of Allah, and the other sha'air that you go through for the sake of Allah, and other forms of worship that you make for the sake of Allah, and your whole life, wa mahyaya, my living, the whole act of my living, wa mamati, and my death when I come to die, lillahi rabbil alameen, all of that should be for Allah and no one else. And so again, that aspect is very clearly emphasized in it. We find ourselves in a modern world where it creates that division. And we live in a world that creates that division in a very fundamental way, where it considers as problematic that if religion is brought into the public sphere, then it is a problem for human beings. If religion is brought into a public sphere in a parochial manner as a source of identity through which you exert yourself on the world, not the what the religious is religion is teaching you in terms of justice and rules and laws by which human beings should live, where it becomes a source of your identity politics, then indeed religion is a problem in society. But in terms of recognizing the overall goals, overall principles that Allah has given us, and the Quran, all of it says that man cannot determine on his own accord the foundational principles on which he must organize his life. That is something he needs to be taught. Because without it, man is constantly guessing, conjecturing, experimenting, and the laws that human beings make are a testimony to it. Because even in a person's own lifetime, when you assign the responsibility to make laws to any human body, you will find that those laws keep evolving, keep changing throughout even a one person's life, let alone a civilization, let alone a world which has a history going back to thousands and thousands of years. So it is so unfair that what is permitted today may be a crime tomorrow, and what is a crime, what will become a crime tomorrow is permitted today. And this is what we are constantly looking at it, and we keep hearing this thing that we are constantly evolving in our thinking and we are getting better at it. But we are not getting better at it. We are constantly moving from one position to the next position. And so this is a result of this division of life. As a result of that, you compartmentalize. You say this sphere belongs to us. This sphere belongs to me as an individual. This sphere belongs to us as a society. And this sphere belongs to Allah, to religion. And you have often hear this say, I don't wear my religion on my sleeve. And so these kind of things are problematic in the eyes of the Quran. Also, another saying that is very common these days is that I am spiritual but not religious, meaning I'm confining religion to my individual matters of heart, and I don't let it come out and influence my living. I don't let it influence how I conduct myself. I don't let it influence the rules by which I live. And so all of that is wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in this beautiful saying through the tongue of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says through the Prophet, Qul inna salati wa nusuki, he through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's saying it to all the believers. That all the believers should recognize this and come to say this. Qul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Surely my prayers and my acts of worship and my living and my dying are all for Allah alone, Lord of the whole universe. And so this is a statement I think that we should repeat ourselves. And whenever we repeat, we must come to recognize that there cannot be a divisions in life, first of all. Secondly, whatever we do, even if we are sleeping, even if we are eating, even when we are washing our bodies, even when we are conducting ourselves in business and the affairs of the world, all of that must be done for the sake of Allah, based on the principles that He has given us. So I'm going to, since my time is up, I'm going to stop here today. And inshallah, we will pick up in generality Surah Al-A'raf next week. Although I had a few verses that I selected that I should deal with in Surah Al-A'raf, but there is not enough time today to go over those verses. So أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.